What's up? Hopefully it's not going to be terribly noisy here. So I'm relaxing today. I'm not going to do my read today. Now I'm getting a phone call. So probably forget the phone call. But anyway, they can leave a message. So this has been bugging me for a while. And you know, once I looked at the fucked up way in which we are constricted to live in in the world. You know, especially when you are looking at your own country, and you know, there's not one goddamn thing that our country can say that makes it better than other countries. Every country has its claims of good justice and fairness and even freedoms. Um, but the devil's always in the details, and they uphold a certain illusion. You know, it's like there was a certain illusion in China for forever, um, that Americans believed that everything is a certain way of lockstep and everything else. Um, but that's not necessarily true. We have a whole lot of people that they see the world as fucked up. They see that their own country is fucked up, especially here in America. And despite the fact that we live in a country that, like any country, will exploit your isolation, and we've had isolation. Hey, what's up, Stein? And there's been isolation in this country for way before the pandemic. There's the isolation of being a face in the crowd, as well as the isolation of never having ever been seen in the crowd. And that form of isolation makes you vulnerable. You can be the one that's singled out, that isn't particularly cared about. And that's when the Gestapo can come for you easily. Because who would resist? Who would care? Who would have the ability? So we take social media for granted. We use it to organize campaigns. We use it to talk about our favorite things. Um, you know, we might use it to have an event. What it never accomplishes is establishing trust. What it never accomplishes is convincing people um, to get together, like, for real. Like, not like we got together for a weekend. Like, you got together and you said, hey, let's all go establish a town. Or hey, let's all move into the same neighborhood. Let's just pool together and just have something, right? Like nobody, like, it's a big conversation, And because social media does not establish that trust, because you're looking for something that gives you true protection, right? It's like I got neighbors here, I got neighbors there, here, there, everywhere, pleasant conversations. But guess what? As much as anybody likes me and I like them, we don't know what's up. We don't know what's happening. And when the Gestapo knocks on your door, people are not going to interfere. Because you have no idea. You don't want to be the one that makes things worse. And you have just enough ability to lie to yourself to say that, well, if he didn't do anything wrong, he'll be okay. Things will sort it out with this mistake. And that's the way we treat everything. And then the damage is done. And the last thing anybody is going to do is try and break someone out of prison, right? A good and innocent man, and where the fuck would you put them when you did? Right? Because you'd have to prepare a whole fucking fake identity for that person. And then you're forced to be a criminal at that point, as opposed to preemptively taking care of your shit. Because if you set things up a certain way to have your life in your world your way, typically it's going to be very, very, very hard for them to do something to you, because the Gestapo doesn't like high trust communities. They don't like the fact that in a certain places, they would go and they know that it would not be just them alone. We live in the madness right now that if ICE takes a complete stranger for whatever reason that ICE needs to take a complete stranger out the street, nobody cares about that complete stranger. What they care about are the optics. Oh my God, ICE is here, and I'm ideologically against ICE, therefore I'm going to cause a problem. It has nothing to do with trust. That neighbor doesn't know that they can trust the person. They don't know, you know, if your neighbor doesn't fucking even know you, and you've been living there, you're an American and everything else, you think that they actually, you know, are a proper advocate for any of these people that ICE are going after? And these people live with a cognitive dissonance. They want to have an impossible world without trying to do anything hard to make it, right? They don't want to do the thing I just mentioned, which is, hey, let's all get together and start like a literal community. Like, everybody's got to have the idea of getting away from everybody that they fucking knew. And hey, listen, I get it. I want to get out of this fucking house because it's just that, you know, the irritation of the family and everything else. But the economy is what it is, and it's much more comfortable to deal with that as much as it can be a killer on all aspects of my social life. But we live in some serious bullshit. Where we're still hanging on to our childish fantasy that was given to us about our world. That we can continue to pursue our personal interests this way. Right? And so We continue to keep ourselves in these isolated positions where everything that you work for, you also have to pay for by yourself. And this is not a communist argument for things, but this is an argument about the establishment of high trust, which is that, you know, things are going to get shared amongst people that trust each other. Communism doesn't work because it's not based on trust. It's based on force for an anonymous, presumed, poorly defined greater good of everyone whom is here. And so it's nothing like knowing that if injustice is coming for you, everybody cares, everybody's invested, everybody would have an interest about it. Anybody who cares or has an interest in anything that would happen to you, anything that would happen to me, you've never met that person. If something happens to you, you've not established trust with me. I'm upset about a horrible thing, an injustice happening. There's nothing I can fucking do about it. Because none of us are near each other. None of us have the efforts to be near each other. None of us are talking in that manner. None of us are there's too few of us anyway. It's been far more years than since 9/11 that there's been all manner of this kind of tyranny. And all of it, we tried simply the idea that our society, our universal sense of rights and freedoms was a particular thing, that you could just give this universal message of here's the conspiracy, here how it stands against everything we stand for. And then you get a nice big audience, like an Alex Jones type of person, whom everybody is listening to. Hey, Saniko, how you doing, man? And then you start challenging people to learn to trust each other. The only answer to an untrustworthy government is a high trust society. And I don't think people make enough kinds of friends that they like. Friends are such a, we treat them as a luxury item. Friends, right? It's just like, hey, look at these cool people I know here, look at these cool people I know there. You know, and maybe you have some sort of business association. You know, there's some sort of transactional involved too. Mutually beneficial in some way. But, every single one of us is just doing the same thing anybody who's not conscious of these things is doing. They just get up to go to work the next day. And sure, that makes you strong because you're isolated and alone. It you know, it makes you think about X, Y, and Z things. You're remembering that this has nothing to do with how uh, lawful and hopefully legal you are. And then you still always have to have that slight wondering, is that like, is one day bullshit coming for me? Just total bullshit. Some people don't believe there's such thing as bullshit. They think that, oh, there has to be some reason. The only reason there is quota. Quota, and who's a name that best fits that quota. And as long as you're a name that nobody cares about, or not enough people care about, or only a handful of other isolated people out there care about, right? Maybe if you're lucky, some woman will cry because you were assaulted and arrested by people in authority that exerted a false claim that they serve the law. And the tyrant prevails. And the tyrant it's just the ignorance of society. It's people that live in the time and place that a tyranny happened, right? It's just like mankind was in a different place in the 1930s, I think, when they officially made cannabis illegal. And then for 70 something years, cannabis was just hard illegal. And the narrative that was false and a lie, both scientifically and socially, and a terrible application of criminal justice theory, those people had to die out because they wouldn't change. And those people are also isolated. And an isolated person can live in the year they made the decisive decision to be the person that they're going to be and think the way that they're going to think for the rest of their lives and never do another goddamn thing about it, because they've reached a sufficient amount of awareness in the world. And as long as they have got their shit together, it's sufficient, because they can prove it's sufficient because they got their shit together, which involves the support of the tyrant. From the point of view of the kind of person whom it's not their personal disposition to be in violation of certain laws that are these victimless crimes, because they think it's as simple as working hard. They don't fucking understand that the job market's trying to fuck you over. This is tyranny. This is tyranny in a republic, in a representative government, is that there's no pressure on the representative from the fool that thinks that nothing's wrong. So we've been living in this kind of social isolation for forever, right? It's the negative side of the individuation process. It's like isolation is a forced individuation to make something unique of you by making you develop with no other reference point to your development. It's the reason why somebody goes to prison and they'll make a religious conversion, because you don't want to be isolated in prison. You want the protection of belonging somewhere. So you go with a gang or you go with a religion. And then you are surrounded by that. That gives you safety and security. And then you'll stick with that for the rest of your life because it was hard enough to deal with things up to making that decision. And you start building off of that, right? All sorts of people, they build off of that. If you want to meet an American coward, just meet a man who has a family he doesn't want to fight for. That's the American coward. They will use their children as an excuse why they won't fight anything wrong. And they raise that kid semi-knowing that there was a world where something needed to be done. And then doesn't have a will to fight for a future. Doesn't think it's worth fighting for. Thinks that other means will get it done. And that it is better to do it slower. Because most of the things they like and find beautiful in the world have not been threatened or attacked. And eventually it'll be too late. And the threats and the attacks will come. And it'll be tragic. And by then, it will be a moot point. And people will think less of you anyway. You have no character. You may be a coward. But because you've rationalized that the government is never wrong like that, you can pretend that there wasn't an enemy. And so therefore you never band together. And this is a Second Amendment right. Right? First and Second Amendment combined does this, right? You have a right to peaceably assemble, you have a right to bear arms. That's all indicative of who we are and what we're doing. And so, yeah, nobody does that, right? They you know, like, whether it's you think your neighbors are gonna spy on you or whether you think your phone's spying on you, you've got this social panopticon. And you don't want to admit that nobody's listening. Palantir is just another panopticon. It's just another waste of money and an excuse to pick a target. But if everybody just actually wanted to change, it would have no power. But it's there to serve the tyrannical sympathizer. So there's nothing. You got nothing. You have nothing. You know? I use the vernacular of the Gestapo, and then I also mentioned ICE. Now, because ICE is what it is, I actually don't see them as the Gestapo. You know, the Gestapo is about taking you and just under no process whatsoever, of course, make a criminal of you. Ugh. See, this is what I mean. I just had to move my position because I don't have control here. All thanks to our low trust society. There used to be the compelling idea of the quote unquote co op, where you were invested in a business, you shared values of your business. Hey, Christy. And Adam, good to see you too. And the co-op was very, very similar to the economy, per se, of Galt's Gulch, which is known from Ayn Rand's Atlas Shrugged. Which is why I liked the co-op idea. You know, it was a private business. It had, you know, it was a local investment. It wasn't like investors in the stock market, which I also liked, and gave it some sort of economic power to grow and to be something. But yeah, so I just look at this stuff and I'm just like, everything through this isolation is the excuse to feed the growth of the state. Because the more we want to be independent, like that, on that particular level. So, and then we're independent, but then we're not independent at the same time. Because we're limited because we don't have each other to boost each other up. I end up being capable of so much more when it's me and other people, because in my mind and my resources pool together with other people, and now there's gas money, now there's food for people, now there's time, so on and so forth. And if that found a fixed place. Anything for me?
Yeah.
All right. Yep. All right. So, if that became a fixed thing with people, you get to have that productive kind of future speak. That future speak leads to the ability, hey, Susie Q and Slick, what's good? And it leads to the ability to plan and organize in more serious ways. Because when one person sits down and says, hey, I'm looking at this land, or hey, I'm looking at this neighborhood, right? Depending on how hardcore you want to be, right? I think it's simple enough to talk neighborhood, where you're just buying a home and then the whole plan is that you've known all your neighbors for forever, right? Because you would have thought that after, what's it been now? 15, 20 years of social media, of the ability to find people like you. And when you're a conspiracy theorist and also have your specific cultivation of yourself, your culture, that that you know, you may not want to just look for who's locally cool, because if who was locally cool was here already, you barely would need social media to pull off what I'm talking about, right? You know, in the city, you might sort of be able to kind of do that, right? Because you're ultimately looking for the ability to just simply, you know, make your registry irrelevant. Because if you just want to fucking do your thing and not be bothered by anybody in particular, you would want to do what you have to do to appease the fact that you're alive, you're known by the state because your parents put a birth certificate in the registry for you before without your consent as a small child, which keeps you known about your whereabouts and other information. You can just leave that in one registered domain and go about and live your life. Oh, you're registered at this address. Yeah, he is registered at this address, but he's never here. He's never here. I don't know where he went, but this is his registered address. Every once in a while, his friend, I don't ask questions, comes up, takes one or two pieces of government mail for him. I don't know what happens after that. Right? Or this kind of thing, which in the movies, they want to make that sound criminal, right? Because it's not criminal, and then the movie will say it's criminal, but it's legal, right? So the cop is just like, oh yeah, that's a classic dirty trick. No, that's just classic freedom, right? But we're in a fantasy movie where somebody died, and somebody's got to pay for that death. And then somebody's exploiting our freedom to get away with the crime of murder, yada, yada, yada. And that's what we've been living with, right? And then these movies give everybody the fucking idea that freedom is bad. That's always the way it is. And then you can't get a story where freedom is good unless you go to the fucking extreme. Which is one of the things I like about Andor. Andor's got the Empire, and what I like about it is that they worship order as a god. The story doesn't say that, but that's effectively what it is. It's just like, I've talked about this now. It's the atheist deity of order, right? That's who's worshipped through the vicar of the Emperor Palpatine, right? And so by that simple ideal, you have women in the Empire, and you have people of color in the Empire, right? I'm sitting there and watching this show. It's just like, yes, Nazis can be black. I'm pretty sure Kanye told us that. Yeah, honestly, and if you look at the history of Germany and Africa, the Nazis in Africa, yeah, that's how funny it is. But they also don't go too stupid, because I haven't seen a female stormtrooper. I haven't seen a female grunt officer, really. You've got some seriously high command female officers, like one of the main villain characters, the SS chick, who runs those 2 seasons. Because part of our delusion, part of this World War II narrative, is that like the only true evil in the world is Nazism. That's the only evil. Nothing else is evil. Only Aryans picking on non-Aryans is the evil in the world. And they can make it as simple as that. This one does a great job in demonstrating the very simple fact that you can have all sorts of tyranny coming from all sorts of races and both sexes. And that's one of the reasons why Andor succeeds, is that it's almost like it's woke but not woke at the same time, because if you are expecting the Empire to just be white human men, so it fits your Nazi mind, then you're not playing with something that's trying to control the galaxy, because they got one thing right: it's all humans that are part of the infrastructure of the Empire. But like Earth and all humans, it's literally any kind of human is an Imperial. Black, white, brown, Asian, male, female. All serving different kinds of important roles. And you gotta remember, like, this movie was made late 70s, early 80s, the original trilogy, right? You didn't have a whole lot of room in the first place to have this cast, especially when you were investing so much in aliens, too, right? Because you wanted to have all these aliens to make things interesting, to give everybody character, and to show this neat idea of this guy could be friends with this weird squid-looking dude, right? And that's one of the things we've been loving about science fiction, is having cool alien and robot friends. That's one of the biggest appeals for the human imagination, to live in that world, is to have an extraordinarily unique and eclectic kind of friend. And, you know, that's what makes social media a frustrating fail, because you meet all sorts of unique and interesting and eclectic friends, and then everything is just words on screen and words in ears, and nothing is hugs and handshakes and laboring together side by side, sitting across a table and eating, sitting at the couch and having a laugh, passing a spliff around. You know, I have just as much fun on a big panel conversation on the internet, whether it be broadcast or just a private panel, as the next motherfucker. But that should be like in person all the time, because everybody fucking came to each other. Half the time I meet somebody, and then, you know, within a month, we're not any closer as fucking friends, even though we seem to be fighting the same evils together. And then they fucking move away, they're doing their thing with their life, and I'm sitting there, well, I've built fucking nothing with anybody. And so, yeah, this is why, like, fucking people just don't get up and fucking revolt about a thing. This is no fucking trust. Not 1 ounce of fucking trust. We just enjoy how we entertain and educate each other. And that's about fucking it. Right? And this is why a lot of people will come and go. Right? I've done what I do with this channel from a premise of an activism. An activism as I see it in my own mind. Because, you know, I back in 2012, I was part of Revolution Radio. I was doing all these things. I was working with Sean David Morton. I was associated with all manner of people. Interviewed a handful, was one of the early guys sitting there just mulling over article after article thing and talking about them online and getting a fucking clearer idea of what the conspiracy of our fucking presence in the Middle East was, how fucking, various aspects of fraud worked, concerns about the police state, and all these real cruel justice practices that we have, and the corruption in our justice system, and the whole 9 yards. Working very hard to get everybody to figure out a way to take all this shit, prove it in simple terms, prove it in respectable terms, So you can go out to your neighbor, to your wherever, and tell them what's up, right? And some of that was getting accomplished. There was a good streak of time where these things were getting accomplished, and you saw all sorts of stuff. And honestly, that was kind of part of what was going on right up to 2019. And then it all crashed. It all crashed, and it's like we forgot what the fuck we were doing. And you know, I'm ultimately happy that our fraudulent culture crashed, right? You know, the Diddy trial is kind of like, it's kind of cathartic. Me looking at what's happening with the Diddy trial, like me for forever was saying, what is up with these fucking people? It's just like, you know, it's just like, why does the media like to talk about people so much? Why does everybody want to fucking talk about Puff Daddy? Puff Daddy hasn't made a goddamn fucking album that's done anything in a fucking decade, and he's like somebody that they like to talk about in the press, and everybody likes to talk about talking about him because the press is interested, and the press has you in this imagination that he is relevant, right? Because he's kind of become a bit of a producer, I suppose. And then so you're celebrity producer kind of material, like a Rick Baker. Is it Rick? No, Rick Baker's the special effects guy. Who am I thinking of? Rick Rubin. Rick fucking Rubin, right? Who worked with Jay-Z and might be involved. Who knows? Or at the very least was he may have been a tipper, right? Like I think Rick Rubin is somewhat of an occultist. As I understand it, I think he's a little bit of an occultist, and I believe he's Jewish, so he'd be a Kabbalist. So who knows? Maybe some of Diddy's ritual ideas were coming from fucking him. But yeah, it's just like these were the insufferably shallow, unintellectual centers of attention and thought that our whole culture was kind of transfixed upon. And people are probably sitting there and they're just like, well, I'm done admiring these people, right? And they never once looked at that thing and said, like, you know, why didn't I pay attention and care more about these rumors? We all want to cry about like what celebrity dies, right? People are talking about how, you know, like we might be looking at justice for someone like Brittany Murphy, right? And nobody nobody sat there, looked at it in its drama, and cared enough, right? It's move on. It was depression, it was drug overdose, it was, these aspects of lifestyle, and like, it always came back around to something you could relate to. It would never come around to saying, oh, there was a conspiracy to off this person for no other reason than black magic. black magic, and the bitch was gonna talk, right? Or something like that. And so we've had a complete continuity break with the life, the culture, the people that all of the messaging of the conspiracy world and the occult world was leaning on, right? All that stuff is broken. A lot of it was broken by Trump because of how we poured it all into him and said he's the guy who's going to settle all conspiracies. And we handed it to him and let him run with it without asking for one iota of accountability. And now here we are with guys that you trusted like Dan Bongino saying, oh, trust me, I read the file. He definitely killed himself just because it said it in the file, and I've seen the file. See? Answered. You could have hired a fucking intern to say that. It's such an embarrassing fucking statement. So yeah. So like there might be 1 million people that care that we're gonna leave this thing settled that Epstein killed himself, for instance, right? Might be 1 million people that care. But if not even 5% of that 1 million people are the people around you where you can go fucking talk, then you really have fucking nothing because you're still isolated. Right? We're unified about things that are not meant to basically be under attack. And we're divided about things that are meant to be attacked. Right? Took us a long time. Took us a long time to do simple little things like, hey, who remembers the raid on Area 51? Isn't it interesting how everything has changed since the raid on Area 51? Our relationship with the idea of the breakaway civilization and the secret space program has changed. Our relationship with U.S. military and its secrets has changed. There was a proof given, because I saw all these people that said like, no, don't go raid Area 51. And I was just like, well, I'm sad that I'm not invited, but yeah, go raid Area fucking 51. I can't make it. I mean, if anybody want to help me get there, see, isolated. You know, like January 6th, I probably just would have been in the crowd. I wouldn't have fucking gone into the fucking Capitol building because I'm not insane, but I'm insulted that nobody asked me to come. Right? This is my fucking point. This is my fucking point. This is, it's like a collective narcissism or something. So, anyway, people got together from all around and, they set up a whole event of the thing. And maybe there was some fraudulent staging with it because it wasn't based on a high trust thing. It was like straight up, it was like, I think it started as a Facebook event that was like almost like a semi-joke, but it captured the right moment in time in the zeitgeist of people that wanted answers about that. All manner of people. People have been watching the History Channel. People have been listening to Alex Jones. People that have been listening to every other kind of conspiracy theorist, Somebody who still thought the Blue Avians were legit was probably like, yeah, let's go raid Area 51 or something like that. And everybody who said don't do it was wrong because everything went great. Nobody got hurt. Nobody did anything truly stupid. There was a couple of kids in the middle of the night who did some Naruto dashes to about 3 feet in front of one of these, what is it, Walken Hut or whatever the guys are called, the fucking private security team for Area 51 sitting at the gate, right? And I'm just sitting there, I'm looking at the video, and there's just a kid just, he's bent over, he's doing the Naruto run up to the guard. It's just kind of a tongue-in-cheek thing. The guard doesn't flinch. He doesn't, like, I don't know, his gun's not, like, in his hand, or I can't remember what it was. It was a non-threatening thing. The kid was allowed to goof off, because that was a accurate threat assessment, if you will. And this changed American consciousness forever. It changed the entire ufology narrative. It did something. It was like an emperor's no clothes kind of moment for, the MyLabs people or something like that, right? Just America in particular has just been going through this whole thing. The world's been going through it in general, which part of that involves a completely different relationship with the UFO phenomenon. It's just like we still see it, we still see UFOs, but it's not the same animal as it was. And then, of course, with the exception of the New Jersey event, the New Jersey event was an anomaly that was induced by psychic stress. And it's far less alien than you think it is. And by that, I mean it's far more interdimensional. Is something that people don't quite understand yet, is how we can project psychic phenomenon as such. It depends on how much you're looking at what Carl Jung is talking about with his UFOs. So anyway, I've loosely made my little point, right? As we live in this limbo state where it's kind of tyranny and it's kind of not. It's kind of the behemoth of government, but it's kind of not. And it's just unfortunate, the state of the way things are. It makes me almost want to sit there and stop doing things a certain way, which it will probably be my conclusion, is to not do things a certain way anymore, because no one's interested in establishing that trust. Nobody wants to be on the phone long enough talking about, hey, how would you do a thing? Who's going to be the baker? Who's going to be the electrician? Who's going to be the plumber, right? Who's going to be the carpenter? Who's going to handle, who's going to handle all the things, so that you as a group are just all pooled together, taking care of it in a manner that's got nothing to do with the government, and also is effectively voluntarism, because, you're probably still going to go to work and make money in the system, but because you're also got this accountability towards each other with people that you like and people that you also, above more than that, trust. It's not really about the money you make going into a commune, because I certainly don't want to get rid of the ideas of, I do my heavy lifting, I get my heavy wallet. But the point is that you're cohesively living together. And if you are the economy, you and everybody that you got together are the economy, it doesn't matter, because you're going to fucking spend money You're going to give your neighbors money just because you're buying something from them. And then everything gets paid off. You, the government that you sadly still have is going to get their little bit, but you guys just got to hold together, and you got to fucking protect the property value to make sure that they're not going to fucking price you out, right? You hold that personal responsibility. Well, you know, whenever I see all sorts of problems, it's usually just coming from abandonment, right? You know, people leave things up to other people, and they build the wrong thing in the neighborhood, and it destroys the property value. Anyway, I've been rambling on for quite a bit. Let me take a quick look at the messages here. Covered German plight against Empire with J6, Gaza situation, and plays the objective truth chasm. Gorman plight against Empire with J6 and Gaza situation. Right. Yeah, well, the Gorman situation, I mean, whoever came up with that language, and it's French. It's the French. That's what it is. It's the idea of the French. It's German. It's German occupied France, and the French are staging their resistance. Yeah, they're really. I wouldn't say that there was really a J6th situation. It didn't pan out like J6th, right? It panned out much more. It panned out much more like raiding the Bastille, per se, right? Except they failed, and it turned into a massacre, right? And as far as we know, the planet's been destroyed because the calcite that they wanted, they needed to strip mine literally the planet. So anyway, actor, armored suit, fully serious. Right. Yeah. Yep. Okay. Equal exchange of energy. Yeah. And control. Okay. Cool. All right, guys. Thanks so much. I'll catch you later.